Consider the Weizmann Institute of Science Israel's double slit experiment. Nature in the absence of measurement is in superposition or entanglement. There are two slits through which photons or electrons pass and end up on the screen behind the slits. The observer or the observer apparatus or detector observes or watches to find out through which slit the photon or electron passed, that is, either left slit or right slit. So, in the absence of an observer or an apparatus or measurement, we end up seeing an interference pattern or something hazy, fuzzy, ambiguous, or simply undefined. Instead of using the term interference pattern, we say that the outcome is hazy, fuzzy, ambiguous, or undefined. It is neither up nor down, neither left nor right, neither away or towards us. No odor, color, taste, noise, or music. It is simply undefined. Now now we introduce the observer. That is, we switch on the observer apparatus that detects to find out through which slit the electron went, either left or right. The hazy, fuzzy, and ambiguous nature disappears, and we see a well defined outcome on the screen. That is, two broad bands or intensity regions, hazy and fuzzy in the absence of measurement, and two well defined broad bands when the measurement is maximum. The beauty of the Weizmann Institute of Science experiment is in the gradual disappearance of the hazy, fuzzy, and ambiguous nature to well defined outcomes as the strength of measurement is increased in steps. The greater the measurement, the lesser the interference pattern or haziness and fuzziness, and greater the definition, resolution, discrimination of the outcome. Again, the greater the measurement, the lesser the interference pattern or hazy fuzziness, and greater the definition, resolution, and discrimination of the outcome. The outcome is two broad bands on the screen. They are well defined and distinct compared to the interference pattern. So if you increase the strength of measurement in steps, the interference pattern disappears in steps and become the outcomes become well defined and distinct in steps. Finally, we have two distinct and well defined broad bands on the screen. The definition, resolution, and discrimination are quite high. If you then decrease the measurement in steps, the observer apparatus influence fades away in steps, and the outcome is no longer definite, resolute, and discriminatory, but the haziness and fuzziness reappears in steps. When the measurement finally stops, or if you remove the observer apparatus, then nature is again in superposition or entanglement. The function of the observer is measurement. The observer influences the input to manufacture a reality based on the observer program. In our example, the observer effect is the measurement of the observer apparatus measurement effect, which is two distinct broad bands. Again, the observer influences the input to manufacture a reality based on the observer program. In our example, the observer effect is the measurement effect of the observer apparatus, which is two distinct broad bands. We learn that measurement implies observer influence. The observer or observed function influences the input to manufacture a reality based on the observer or the function of the observer apparatus. Therefore, measurement is influence and qualification. Consider a vulture a human, and a dead carcass that emanates an odor. The vulture finds the odor attractive, while the human finds it offensive. How can the same odor be both attractive and offensive? The vulture or the human interprets the odor compared to based on the vulture program or a human program. If you swap the sensory system of the vulture for the humans, then the vulture will find the same odor offensive, and the human will find the odor attractive. The observer or the observer apparatus qualifies the input to produce an output or outcome based on the observer program. The vulture uh, Again, the greater the strength of measurement or interpretation by the vulture program, the greater the attractiveness of the odor. Similarly, the greater the strength of human program's interpretation of the same odor, the greater the offensiveness. It all depends on the strength of measurement. This is what we learned from the Weizmann Institute of Science's Israel double slit experiment. Interpretation, translation, qualification, and discrimination are all measurement, and the function of the observer is measurement.